Sheila is a Gemini Award nominee and is a natural-born storyteller. Many of the stories she told as a journalist were of personal hardships and victories, including the heartwarming account of Faron Hall, who became known as the homeless hero. Sheila also produced numerous stories for a television audience, the realities of families affected by the ongoing missing and murdered Indigenous women and men, an epidemic in Canada. Sheila continues to work towards raising awareness on this national tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women by working closely with families, friends, and First Nation leaders of those touched by this issues. Sheila's primary role at AMC, however, is to work with Grand Chief Epidemic and other First Nation leaders in Manitoba by continuing to build bridges of understanding between First Nations and non-First Nations people through media relations and forms of communication. Please give her a warm welcome.
I feel extremely honored to be standing here in front of you, and I was just telling Julie that what an energy that you have in this room, and I congratulate you for the passion that you have in the work that you do, and I'm so honored to be here with Ken Lowenza and Buzz Hargrove. Of course, everyone's heard of Buzz, and it was the first name I recognized when I came here, and now to see all the people behind these great people, I see why and how they're strong, and I'm thankful to be standing here in front of you. My name is Sheila North Wilson. I'm from the Bunbonabee Cree Nation, and I bring greetings on behalf of the First Nations people of Manitoba. I work for the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and my boss is the Grand Chief Derek Nepenak of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and he brings greetings to you. He's out in his community right now after a long week in Ottawa, rushing into the Parliament Hill buildings, telling the Harper government that we will not be second-class citizens in our own country. And that brings me to the point of being here. I do a lot of work voluntarily on the missing and murdered Indigenous women's issue, along with my work at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs as a communications officer. And even when I'm not working, I think about it. It's kind of engrossed me and enveloped my life, and my family will attest to that. When I'm with them, I still talk about the issue because it's very, very important to me, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why. But before I do, I just want to show you this necklace that I'm wearing. Even if you were standing beside me, you would hardly be able to see it. It's tiny, it's silver, and it has a little diamond in there. And when I was working to help with a rally and vigil for a missing woman named Tanya Nepenak, the mother and the father and the sisters and the former partner and children were so grateful just to have a little bit of help. And I didn't even do much. I was just helping to organize getting them a permit for their rally, getting them some donations, and we all did at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and they were so grateful. And these are people that don't have a lot of money. They don't have the resources that many Canadians enjoy, and they don't have even the basics all the time. And they bought me this necklace. And the poignant part about it is when they gave it to me, I wore it and never took it off for a good 2 months. And I took it off one day, and I put it in my pocket, and I lost it. I completely lost it. And for 2 weeks, it bothered me that I couldn't find this little tiny necklace. And when I went to a store, one of the retail giants, I saw this necklace, and it cost $18. It's sterling silver. It has a tiny little diamond in it. So I bought it to replace the one that I lost. And I did that because to me it signified that the family has lost their daughter. and their daughter hasn't been found. But just to keep reminding myself and to hope that they will find their daughter, I bought this. And I try not to take it off ever again. I bought a stronger chain for it. It's not very expensive, but the metal is precious, and so is the jewel, just like our First Nations women are in Canada. And some of the names of these women that I'm talking about are Tanya Nepanak, Cherise Houle, Hillary Angel Wilson, Jennifer Catchway, Vanessa Briere, Claudette Osborne. And to say some of these names is very difficult sometimes because I see the families and the faces. And when I talk to them and ask them about what happened in their situation, it breaks my heart every time. And I'll tell you, when I was working as a reporter, as a journalist in Winnipeg, I always got the same, I asked some same questions. And when I would ask an Aboriginal family member, what happened? What did the police say? Where were they last? And the common theme has always been that police don't act. And I'm not going to knock down the police because they have a very hard job. They have a difficult job, and they work in tough circumstances as well. But the common theme that I hear from families is that police don't act immediately. I think that's starting to change. But one example in Portage-la-Prairie, which is just west of Winnipeg, I asked the mother of Jennifer Catchway when she went missing in August 2009, I believe. When she went missing, she went to police, and the police said, oh, she's probably on a drunken bender. She'll be back in a week or so don't worry about it. 2 weeks later, a non-First Nations woman, just as equally as important, Amber McFarlane, went missing. The last place that she was seen was at a beer vendor. And I had a chance to talk to the mom immediately after Jennifer Catchaway's mom, and I asked, what did the police say when you told them that your daughter was missing? Do you know what she said? She said, oh, they were so helpful. I couldn't do anything without them. They acted so immediately. They got her face out, their picture out. They're beautiful. And what is the difference? Why would they say that to an Aboriginal mother that's hurting? A woman that raised her daughter in her home and was supposed to celebrate her 18th birthday, and to another woman with a different skin color. Why? Why is that happening in Canada, in the richest nation, one of the richest nations in the world? This shouldn't be. We are the First Nations of this country, and we deserve respect. Our families deserve respect. And on the sheet that Julie White has passed out in her staff, you will see statistics in the back of some of the disparaging facts in this country. Aboriginal women are more than 8 times more likely to be killed by their intimate partner than non-Aboriginal women. Our men are hurting too. And there are more than 582 documented cases of missing and murdered Aboriginal women in Canada. I rode here from Ottawa to Toronto in a vehicle that's covered in faces of missing and murdered Aboriginal women. Gladys Radek is the one that has the van, and she drove it from Vancouver to Ottawa, and she lives in Ottawa now. But everywhere we go, when she was picking me up, people would look at her van. People would ask us questions when we'd stop at a restaurant. Some total stranger came and gave me a tiny little feather, said, thank you for the work that you do. So it's people like that that are actually getting the word out and getting the message out. And the fact that you're hearing about this missing and murdered Indigenous women's issue is because of people like Gladys Radek that are doing this on a shoestring budget. She has no money, she has no income because of the social circumstances that many of us come from. And I ask you, and I come here, and I thank you for supporting, even in thought and even in prayer and financially, to support our work that we do for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And personally, what really hit me, and I think how it really captured me, is when I was going to high school here in Winnipeg. In Winnipeg. I was fresh out of Bonbonnaby Cremation, Oxford House, and I didn't know anything about living in the city whatsoever. I had no idea, and I was sent to Winnipeg to go to school and to get education. And when I came here, I had to learn how to ride the bus myself and buy a bus pass and all those simple things that everyone knows how to do automatically. And the first 3 times I rode a bus, I had to, well, I didn't have to, but I did, showed my bus pass to every single person on the bus because I had no idea. I didn't want people to kick me off the bus. And another time, I was standing at a bus stop waiting to go home, but the bus didn't come because it was late. And a man started talking to me on the street, and he was saying that it's not safe on the street. You should come with me. I just live on the next block. You're putting yourself in danger. And then I said, it's okay, I'll wait here. Then he started saying, well, I have drinks. If you want drinks, you can come with me. I have a warm bed. He was really, really working hard to try and get me to go with him. But the morals I have in me and the conscience, I knew it wasn't right, and I didn't follow him. So I ran across the street. He followed me, and I ran another half a block and then back down and then did a 4 square 2 times, and he followed me the whole time, talking in my ear about how I need to go with him. Now, if I had been a little bit intoxicated, which I wasn't, or even vulnerable, more vulnerable than I was, and I didn't have the strength to say no, then I would have been in grave danger. When I got back to the bus stop the second time, a car pulled up and said, is that man bothering you? And I said, yes, he is. He said, get in. I jumped in. And the music was really, really loud. And he turned it down when we started driving, and he said, don't be alarmed, but you're driving in a stolen car. And he said, I'm just traveling through to Ontario, and I need a place to sleep. And I said, well, where I live, I don't own the house. I'm just a guest. And he said, that's okay, I'll just stay in your room. And I don't know this man from a hole in the wall. And to me, my utter relief turned to utter grief. And the stupid part about it was I showed him to exactly where I lived, and we pulled up right to the house where I stayed at. And he said, well, if you're not going to let me in, I need something for the ride that I just gave you. And as soon as he started to lean over, I jumped out and ran in the house. And I didn't come out for at least a week because I was so frightened. And this was my experience into the city. I had no idea about being street smart or anything like that. And another time when I was leaving high school, a friend of mine took me to a house where the house, it wasn't a house. There was mattresses all over every single room, and even the kitchen. And there was sheets covering the windows. It was not a house. And there was bongs and paraphernalia to smoke up. And a group of men, immigrants, that were in there, Asian men. And I learned later on in life that this was an Asian gang. That was one of the houses that a friend of mine took me to. And in there was other Native girls. It was Native girls and Asian men, older ones. And I didn't feel comfortable, so I left. When I came back to pick up my friend, the police were there, so I couldn't connect with her, so I went home. Fast forward to my journalism career, I started talking to missing and murdered families and even some victims. And they started talking about when they were teenagers, they would go to these houses that were occupied by gangs. And there was all mattresses and sheets on the wall and windows. And that's where they came from. And that's where I thought that, you know, I could have been one of these girls that have been victimized by these men, and I could have been one of these missing or murdered Indigenous women that we hear about. And for that, I was so eternally grateful, and I started feeling obligated that I have to get out the word that not everyone got out. Not everyone had the sense and the wits and the courage to leave. A lot of us did. There would have been more victims. There could be more victims if it wasn't for the strength that we have. Consider the residential school system. How many of our young people and our ancestors have died? And if it wasn't for the strength of our people, we'd all be eliminated. We wouldn't be here, but we're here. And now we want to fight for the people that can't fight for themselves and their families. Thank you so much. And it's women of families like that that we need Stephen Harper and the Conservative governments to call for a national public inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I call on your support to support families of our missing and murdered Indigenous women across Canada. Thank you very much.